Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Aira channel on Facebook and YouTube. We are continuing the Ramadan Dawah training. We actually started this series at the beginning of Ramadan, and then we had a bit of a break, and now we are back. So today we're actually going to be doing a GORAP summary. Assalamu alaikum, Imran.
Malik Islam, how are
How are
you,
you
bro?
doing?
Good. MashaAllah, I'm liking that Superman hairstyle you've got going on.
Oh,
MashaAllah,
nice. Yeah, yeah,
it's been growing, hasn't it?
yeah.
Lockdown means long hair.
In Ramadan, Ramadan, but then also that. Assalamu alaikum, Ayman. Ayman's joining us from Honduras,
MashaAllah, Islam.
outreach specialist there. So, yeah, the lockdown, you can't really get a haircut, so it just keeps growing.
Alhamdulillah.
You have to take care of it. So, Imran, just a quick thing to start off with. Could you remind everybody about a viral awakening? What is a viral awakening and what is it about?
Yeah, so the Viral Awakening campaign that we've been working on is basically a campaign where we're trying to make the most of being on lockdown, as far as giving dawah is concerned. So we know that we can't go out, we can't engage with people, we can't do our regular activities that we're used to doing. So we're transferring all of our activities online. So we thought, what better, time than now to sort of get online, because people are going to be online, people are on lockdown, people are at home, they can't go out. So they're going to be on Netflix, maybe Google, YouTube, spending time anyway. So let's reach out to people and let's share the message of Islam with people. And as we know, bro, that, Islam provides you with all of the answers and gives you all of the tools you need to deal with any situation in life, the good times and the bad times. So obviously the world is going through a difficult time right now, and Islam has the answers and it has the solutions and it has all of the things that you need to be able to get through such rough times. So we're just trying to share that with people, man, and just to share the message of Islam and to inform people of their true purpose and why they were created.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else, that I was thinking about, and it makes a lot of sense. A viral awakening is about mobilizing Muslims essentially to convey the message of Islam online. Everyone's online. I was looking up there's some statistics on this video I was watching about. It's unbelievable how many people are on Facebook, how many people are on YouTube. It's just everyone's online. And if we can share the message of Islam online, then it's so much easier from the comfort of your house, from the safety of your house. You could basically just speak to people and just convey Islam in a very profound way. Now, about this particular campaign, we are going to be slowly opening it out to the public and getting volunteers involved. At the moment, we're still in our infancy and developing it, and we're going through our sort of usual you could say cycle. When you have a cycle, you have those supports on the side. So we're going through that phase at the moment, and we're going to open it up to the public. So let's now go back to what we were doing at the beginning of Ramadan. So we went over the importance of dawah, why we must convey this message of Islam to humanity, why during the time of this lockdown, this is a perfect opportunity to speak to people. And then we covered the basics of the GORAP. We covered uncomfortable questions, how you shouldn't be answering those questions and going back to the basics, which is God's existence, oneness, revelation, and prophethood. And then today we want to do a summary of that. So before we get into the summary, Imran, why is it important? I mean, some people would say, why do you need dawah training? Just read the Quran, go out there and talk to people. I mean, why do we need dawah training? What's the point of even going through all of this?
Yeah, so on the surface is a very good point, bro, because we have the Quran. That's what we want to share with people. That was the dawah of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's but there's an assumption there that when we're talking about dawah training, we're talking about moving away from sharing the Quran. We're not. The whole point of our dawah training course is to make it easy for you as far as what to share from the Quran primarily, right, with people. So when we're giving dawah to people, obviously the focus is to bring people to an understanding of who Allah is and an understanding of who they are, what the purpose of their life is, what the Quran is, who the Prophet was. All of these things are covered in the Quran, right? So what we're essentially saying is that when you're in a dawah conversation, what the training is suggesting is that when you're in a given dawah conversation, there are certain things that you need to cover first, or you need to mention first, you need to talk about first, that you need to inform people of first. And the fundamental things are, who is Allah, the proofs for God's existence, the oneness of Allah, the Quran being revelation from God, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, being the final messenger of God, along with obviously the purpose of our life. So if we can convey these things properly, referring back to the Quran, absolutely, of course, where else are we going to go, right? We have to refer to the Quran, and if we can convey these things to the people properly, then we have given people enough information and knowledge so that they can make an informed decision and choice in regards to whether they want to accept the truth or not, right? That's the objective really behind giving da'wah. Essentially, we're not there to demonstrate our knowledge on specific aspects of Islam or go into a detailed discussion about the fiqh of certain things. No, that's not our objective. Objective is to simply convey the message, the fundamentals of Islam, the core bread and butter, if you like, information of that people need to make an informed decision. So that's what the Dawah training course does. That's essentially what it does. It just refocuses you on what you need to share with people. Absolutely. And that's why we have the course.
Absolutely. And also we have to think of it from the perspective that whatever we do, we have to do with excellence, right? And we have to do in the best way. So when it comes to dawah, why wouldn't we want to do dawah in the best way? Now, if we want to convey dawah in the best way, then we convey the message of Islam rather in the best way, then why would we skip out all of the experience that many people have had over the years? And this is extremely important to understand that, look, summarizing the GORAP is basically this. The GORAP is a philosophy that it doesn't matter what question somebody has in their mind. It doesn't matter how they feel about a particular thing. The question essentially is it the case that God is all knowing and human beings are not? Yes, it is the case. Well, if God is all knowing and human beings are not, therefore human beings should submit to God. That's essentially the GORAP. And the whole point of the GORAP is, firstly, anybody comes to you with a question, right? They want to ask you, why is it that men have such beautiful beards? Why is it that women wear hijab? Why is in Islam you have 5 prayers and not 7 prayers? Why can't you eat pork? Why do you have this particular law or this punishment for this crime? Why? And the GORAP is essentially saying, look, in order for you to truly understand why in Islam we have all these things, I need to explain to you why we believe Islam is from God. Because if Islam's from God, everything else doesn't matter anymore. Everything else doesn't matter anymore. You could have a question about a particular moral issue, a question about a legal issue. You don't understand this verse. Doesn't matter. If the Quran's from God, then everything else doesn't matter, right? Now, I've got some random books here, yeah? Just random books about different.
Put that back where you found it, bro.
Listen. All these random books, yeah? I just want to say something. All of these books, you can fill them up with uncomfortable questions and answers to uncomfortable questions, right? So for some reason the sun's come and I've become dark suddenly.
You have to turn towards the window.
Here we go. There we go. So anyway, you can fill up volumes of books full of why is it a man can marry 4 women but a woman can't marry 4 men? Why this, why that? You can have entire lectures, series, you can have a documentary on this, you can have books on this. But fundamentally, if you speak to somebody about, I don't know, 45 minutes explaining to them that jihad is not warfare, not blind warfare and terrorism and these things, jihad has these different meanings, or Sharia doesn't mean this, or women, they're not oppressed because of this. You do all of this stuff, right? Does that mean that that person is any more likely to become Muslim?
No.
Why?
Well, because you're not giving them the foundations. You're not giving them what they need to know.
Yeah.
Right? It's if they don't know who Allah is, and if they don't know what the purpose of their life is, then everything else is superfluous. Everything else is trivial, right? And I say trivial, obviously there's significant things, but they're trivial from the perspective of that person who doesn't even know the basics. So until they know who God is, until they know what the purpose of their life is, until they understand these fundamental things, and until they've made that decision to, based on these fundamental things, accept or reject, the rest is irrelevant. Once they've accepted the truth and they've acknowledged it, then those things become relevant. Then you can spend your entire life studying those things and looking into those things, and based on your passion and your desire to look into certain things, well, you can go do that. You can run away with any specific niche topic, but initially what's relevant is, who is your creator, what is your purpose, who was your prophet, what is the Quran, what is your book. These are the fundamental things. These are the things we're going to be questioned about in our graves, man. That people need to know this. These are the things that make the difference. Accepting them make the difference between someone that's a Muslim and someone that's not. So that's what dawah is, bro. Dawah is to invite people to the worship of Allah. It's not to invite people to a clearer understanding of, the fiqh of fasting, for example. It's not about that. But what ends up happening sometimes, and it happens quite naturally with most of us, most people, which is, when you learn things and you gain knowledge about certain things, you, as human beings, you just want to share. This is not necessarily out of like, showing off. It's just a natural human trait. You learn something, you want to share it with people. Yeah. So unfortunately, what ends up happening in a dawah context is, some brothers may go away, sisters may go away, do some courses on Islam and study some things in depth, which is brilliant. But then they bring it to the dawah. So whenever someone asks them a question, it's an opportunity for them to exercise, and practice and revisit that knowledge and share it with people. But we defeat the purpose by doing this. So we have to always be conscious of the fact that when we're giving dawah, it's about calling people to the foundations.
Absolutely. I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it, because we sometimes suffer from this curse, which is, oh my God, I read this book. The guy's asking me a question. Let me link his question to this book, right? I mean, it's the simplest things in life are the most profound. Yeah. I mean, if you look at Proverbs, if you look at poetry, if you look at simple things, they really make people think, right? And I think it's very important. Like, for example, not only is it the case that we need to keep things simple rather than going off into these topics about, politics or Sharia or this or that, we also need to understand that if a person asks a question, it doesn't mean that that is the most important question that they should be asking. Because we have this assumption, we have this false assumption that if someone's asking me a question, then by virtue of them asking me this question, the question is somehow really important and has to be answered. I remember some guy who was old, he was asking me about women's rights in Islam, right? And he was really concerned about women in Islam, right? Like the way they're treated or something. And I honestly just looked at him and I thought to myself, it's like, is that question even relevant to you? Like, I looked at him like the guy was like, how many years away is he from death? How many years away is he from eternity? Yeah. Should he be sitting, and he's a taxi driver and we were going somewhere, should he be sitting in London worried about the way women are treated in Southeast Asia? He may be, which is good, which is fine, perfectly fine, but is that the primary question that he should be worried about? Should I try and get rid of that misconception he has and spend 3 hours explaining to him that women are not oppressed in Islam? That's a misconception. He's asking the wrong questions, right? He should, the first question, I mean, the other question he asked is good, but the first question he should ask is, I'm old now, I haven't got many years left to live, what's going to happen after I die? So you have to sort of remind people, hang on a second, you need to ask the right questions here. And that's what's powerful about the GORAP, because the GORAP's not reactionary. The GORAP is proactive. The GORAP's basically saying, it doesn't really matter whatever issue you're bringing up. The real issue is, God is all powerful, God is all knowing, God is all wise. If God has given us the truth, we should follow it. So it's all bypasses all of the the distractions.
I mean, there's a difference between recognizing and appreciating that someone's asked you a question, and to sort of if you like, I don't know what the word is, but to acknowledge that and take that as something that's good. But there's a difference between that and taking whatever question is asked as to be an important question, right? So what you don't want to do at the same time is, if you know there's a question that's been asked which is not relevant and it's not the most important thing, you don't want to come across in a sort of undermining way where you're sort of undermining the person that's asking the question just because you recognize that question isn't important. But at the same time, so you want to find that balance. You want to acknowledge that someone's asked you a question and acknowledge that person, right? Well, even if you know the question is not important, but at the same time, you need to recognize if that question is important or not. And then if it's not important, is to give them what's really important and to redirect that conversation at that point. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I think it's an important point, which is, that not all questions are relevant. It's like, as an example, some atheists would just turn around and say, can God create a rock so heavy that he himself cannot move? Any question people give you, we just take it seriously, right? If you really think about this question, you realize how silly it is, and when you realize that it's not even a question, it's just a silly statement, right? So we shouldn't. I don't know why it happens, but we shouldn't let that be the case where someone's asked a question and we immediately attach importance to it. We should really sit there and think about, okay, from a Dawah perspective, is this question really what they need? I know they want it, they want an answer to that, they're interested in it, but is that really what they need? That's the question we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good way that you put it. Two people are basically asking the same question. Slave of Allah, guys, what's the biggest evidence for Islam's truthfulness? Evidence that's falsified? What if I get a third? Okay, same thing. And then Harun is basically saying, how do you simply put forward Islam as the true religion instead of others? Why Islam is true, not other religions? Okay, we covered this previously. Let me just cover it briefly again, and then Imran can give his thoughts on as well on this. Firstly, it's not the case that, okay, Islam is true in the same way that we can show 1 + 1 is 2 and go around to people and give them this formula. The first point is, anybody that's sincere and anybody that's not sincere, they will not see the same thing. The person who's sincere, it will not take much for them to recognize Islam as the truth. It will not take much. Somebody that's not sincere, you can give them everything. In fact, Allah says in the Quran, even if they saw miracles, they would say, no, we don't believe in this, right? So that's the first point, that sometimes as Muslims, what happens is we accept the paradigm that we're speaking about the truthfulness of Islam in the same way we're talking about the truthfulness of the shape of the earth, or Bernoulli's theorem, or no, it's not as simple as that. This is a spiritual question. For you to see the truth, you have to come with sincerity. If you come with sincerity, you recognize. This is why Abu Jahl and Bilal radiallahu anhu, they had different reactions. Abu Jahl, he was a disbeliever, and Bilal was a believer. Now, from an experiential point of view, what did Bilal see that Abu Jahl didn't see? They both saw the same thing. So what was different? What's different is not the arguments for Islam, for both of them, but their state, which allowed them either to be receptive or not receptive, right? So I think this is extremely important, and this isn't highlighted enough. We start treating Islam like a mathematical formula or scientific theory. How can I show to this robot, and I'm also a robot, that this particular formula is correct? That's not what we're talking about. That's just nonsense, right? Okay, so that's the first point. There has to be sincerity involved, right? Secondly, if somebody was to not even hear about Islam or Hinduism or Christianity or Taoism or Taoism or Judaism or any religion, and they were simply to be born in the world and to think and reflect objectively about it, because of their fitrah, their natural state, and because of the fact that they're using their reasoning capability, they would recognize a few basic facts. They would recognize clearly there is one creator. There's one overall Lord. There's one overall creator of everything. They will also recognize clearly the creator is the only one we should be worshipping. We should not be worshipping a book. We should not be worshipping a rock, an idol. We should be worshipping the Creator who's given us everything, given us air, given us food, given us weather, given us clothing, given us all these things. Okay. Lastly, what's the Creator like? Well, the Creator can't be like the Creator. The Creator is things. This is so intuitive. This is so rational. You know, if I make the table, I don't become the table, right? The Creator has to be distinct from the creation. So these basic things, that there's one Creator, the Creator is only one worthy of worship and nothing like His creation, you can arrive at that without hearing about religion. Secondly, knowing this, it also makes sense that the Creator would send revelation, right? Because the Creator wouldn't just leave us to run on our own. The Creator would give us a meaning, give us a purpose, give an explanation how to deal with suffering. So now, based upon the fact that we know the Creator sends a revelation, and based upon the fact that we know that the Creator is one, the only one worthy of worship, nothing like His creation, automatically, when you look at all religions, automatically you will recognize Islam is the truth. Straight away. Straight away. You don't need linguistic miracle. You don't need scientific miracles. You don't need historical miracles. You don't need to know Arabic. Just conceptually, the only religion on earth which teaches strict monotheism you can arrive at without religion is Islam. And that's the number one evidence that Islam is the truth. Because Judaism, Christianity, Sikhism, Hinduism, they all fail when it comes to this criteria. God being one. Most religions agree. But things like, particular forms of Hinduism or other religions, that's when they fail. God being the only one worthy of worship, this is where all religions barring Islam, fail. We say worship to God alone. And then what do you have left over? You really have Islam. Islam says you only worship God alone. You cannot associate any partner with God. And then there is God being nothing like the creation, and that's again something that Islam has. And even religions which seem monotheistic, like Sikhism, they have this concept of God in which God enters creation. So automatically by this, and this is very important to understand for Muslims, because Dajjal, he's going to come with miracles, but he's going to not come with the right theology. He's not going to come with Tawheed. He's going to come with Shirk. So it's not the case that we're rational algorithms, we're rational robots. Dajjal has these miracles, therefore we follow him. No, because anybody that's sincere will see that he can't be God, because theologically it doesn't make sense that a human being is God. An insincere person will say, see, this is evidence Dajjal is the truth, right? So the thing is, it's extremely important for Muslims to step away from this abstract proof, the way that it's explained on many platforms, even by some Muslim personalities, that we treat Islam like a rational formula, which is to be recognized by sane robots. It's a lot more deeper than that, more profound than that.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Yeah, it's a subtle mistake, but we make it a lot. It's not like building a wall. You're not gonna put, like, if you have a layer of bricks and then you put cement on those bricks and you put another layer, you expect the wall to go up in height. The more layers you put on, the more taller the wall gets. It doesn't work like that. It's not a case of you have a simple argument. Okay, no, it's not going to work. You need a more complex argument. That should work. No, you need an even more complex argument. That should work. There's a lot more at play here. It's like, you could give the most amazing argument to someone, but depending on their internal state, they will reject it, right? If they don't want to believe, they're not going to believe, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like that. How can you say? It's more like Tetris. That Tetris game, right? They used to play. The pieces add up and then they disappear, and you're like, what's going on here, right? It's like it's not like that uniform building of a wall which goes up as you build on top of it. It's like you're putting on layers, but it's disappearing. That's the sort of analogy here, because you're speaking to someone, you're giving them a clear argument, you expect them to understand it. Like, the process you think is argument in, they process it, they accept it. That's how it should be according to us, but it doesn't work like that, because we're dealing with human beings, and human beings, by their very nature, can can mislead themselves. There's a lot more that's going on internally. There could be emotional issues underlying. There could be someone that doesn't want to believe because they've had an emotional experience in their life where they misunderstood what happened. They blamed God for it. They have a hatred towards God, but now they're masking that with this sort of cloak of rationality, and they're talking to you on that level. You know no better. You assume that okay, they're just rational because if you don't take the time to get to know them, you'll never know, right? And then you just keep pushing down the argument from dependency, and they're like, no, right? They don't want to accept it, and they may be quite witty. They may be quite good with their words, right? And they may just wrap you up and confuse you a bit and make you feel like, oh, your argument's bad or you didn't convey it properly. Where actually what happened was that you were engaging with that person on a level where you didn't need to be engaging with them. You had to be dealing with the fundamental underlying issue, which you should have probed at and got to know them a bit more, and you could have got access to that information, right? But you didn't, and you just assumed this sort of binary way of looking at things, 1 + 1 is 2, and you went in like that and it didn't work, and then you get frustrated, right? So we need to keep this in mind. It's not going to be like math, there's no formulas here. It's going to be a case you go in a good argument, give it to someone, they just reject it. On another occasion, you go in, you just say God is one, forget the argument, and they accept it. Right? You're gonna get cases like this, and you're gonna be thinking to yourself, what's going on here? You have to keep in mind that people are different. There's lots going on inside the human being, and you have to understand at the end of the day, guidance is in the hands of Allah. So you have to make dua, and your job is to just clearly deliver the message. Once you've done that, don't question yourself, don't doubt yourself. As long as you're sincere and you stick to the basics, you should be fine, right? If someone doesn't accept them, well, there's probably, it's in the hands of Allah. There's probably a lot more that's going on. It may be arrogance. It may be a whole host of different things, bro, which may be at play. So we have to be attuned to this and know that this may be going on.
Yeah, I mean, we have this very simplistic understanding that if it works, it's true. If it doesn't work, it's not true, right? The thing is, Islam is true. It doesn't matter if people accept it or not. So you may have people today who are very effective du'at. They go around giving dawah, getting lots of shahadas. They may get 1,000 shahadas a day, 1,000 shahadas a year. Nuh alayhi salam, he had given dawah to his nation for hundreds of years, yet very few followers. Was he lacking in his dawah? No, he wasn't. He was a better da'i than any human being alive today. So why did he have less shahadas? He had less shahadas because of the audience that he was dealing with. They were stubborn and they did not want to accept Islam. I remember a few years ago, we were doing this campaign called Ramadan Dawah Challenge 2013, right? And we had a brother who joined us, and he was so gutted and disappointed because he said, I'm not good at dawah, because when I talk to people and I give them the explanation why Islam is true, they don't accept it. So what am I doing wrong? And I had to explain to him again and again that it's not about this, it's not about you. We're just there to convey the message. And I think this is extremely important to understand, because we're not even saying that if you give someone the GORAP, that means they're going to accept Islam. No, if you give someone the GORAP, they'll understand fundamentally all of these questions are meaningless, and the only real question they need to be asking is Islam true? Everything else is meaningless.
Look, people need to understand this clearly. The GORAP is not there to ensure that people accept Islam. The GORAP is there to ensure that we give people what we know we need to give them.
Yes.
Right. That's the big difference there. So if we can be satisfied that we've given them what they need to know, the rest is in the hands of Allah. Just make sure we clearly deliver the message. And that takes two things. One is obviously the GORAP and sticking to the basics. And the second thing is being emotionally intelligent and intuitive enough to get to know the person, their emotions, what they've gone through, get to the root cause of what the problem is and address them like that, inshallah.
Yeah. Definitely. I want to deal with this comment. This brother Alauddin, maybe his name is Alauddin. And Imran Sabur, you need to do more effort in your programs to answer and refute misconceptions about Islam. Okay, so Jazakallah khair for the question. And the reason why I wanted to deal with this question is because this is a very common thing, which is, okay, yes, you gave us the GORAP, but that's not enough. give us the evidence that, marriages, polygamy, or, that makes rational sense, or, this. So look, the answer in a very simple way is that doesn't in any way explain why Islam is true. When you do away with a misconception, you have to have a priority of misconceptions. There's a misconception Islam oppresses women. There's a misconception that Islam promotes terrorism. There's a misconception that, only the Prophet, peace be upon him, had polygamous marriages and other people didn't. Whatever misconception. Well, shouldn't we get rid of the biggest misconception that Islam is not the truth? That's the biggest misconception. Once you sort out that misconception, everything else goes away. There's this trend. I want to ask your thoughts on this, Imran. There's this trend that you give someone the GORAP and they're like, I need more. This is not enough. It needs to be more complicated than this. You get that?
Yeah, because I do, and I can see the natural sort of want for that, because, and I think one of the reasons is, bro, because what we've done is we have made people the judge, right? We see them as the greatest authority, right? So whatever they say, it must be true, it must be relevant, it must be significant, right? So when someone brings a misconception, we understand that no, that's not the fundamental issue here. We need to deal with, like you said, the biggest misconception. But just because they brought it to us, we for some reason give that a special value, right? And we put that on top of everything else. And we shouldn't really do this. But the second thing is, bro, the other issue is, alongside what you said about dealing with the biggest misconception. Well, to deal with, look, you need to understand that the person that has a misconception, that misconception exists for a particular reason. And one of the main reasons most people in the West have misconceptions about Islam is because there are things in Islam which they simply cannot appreciate and understand according to their paradigm, according to their way of looking at the world, right? Now, if we understand that, because we have to remember, people are coming from a very liberal, secular outlook, right? And mixing a bit of atheism there as well. Now, from that perspective, there's going to be a lot of things in Islam that are there that people will not agree with based on the platform that they're standing on, the platform meaning, or the lens that they're looking at the world through, the lens of this liberal secular lens that they hold on to, right? Now, we appreciate these things and understand these things because we have an Islamic lens, right? That's how we see the world, but they don't, right? Now, it doesn't make any sense that you're going to give your justifications and your ways of seeing things from your lens to someone that's seeing the world through a different lens, because they'll never be able to appreciate it anyway. You can, and I've seen this, bro, you've seen this, you can articulate a particular point about Islam, which may be a point of contention, in the best way possible, right? You may have read 3 or 4 books on it. You may have made extensive notes. You've simplified in a way where you can engage with it, with the person on a popular level on that point. And you articulate that point in a very beautiful way, but you realize they turn around and look at you like, no, I don't accept that, right? Yeah. Why does that happen? It's because we're not dealing with the fundamental issue here, which is you have to give people the right lenses first, right? I mean, put yourself in the position, if you for a moment adopt that sort of liberal secular lens and you remove your Islamic lens, and you look at, and the best way of looking at this is most people I'm sure on this live as well, we weren't always practicing. We started practicing later on in life. I'm sure when you weren't practicing, if you ever read the Quran, or translation of the Quran, or some narrations of the Prophet ﷺ before you came to Islam or started practicing Islam, you maybe came across loads of things that you didn't agree with, that didn't sit well with you, that created agitation inside you, right? You maybe didn't say it because you were Muslim, but you felt it, right? And maybe later on when you started practicing Islam, when you went back to those very things and you read those same things, they made sense. Why does this happen? The content hasn't changed. The information hasn't changed. It's the same information. What's changed is your lenses, your perspective. So what we have to do is try to give people the right perspective. How do we do this? Give them the foundations of Islam. If, for example, if you tell them who Allah is, who God is, and they understand this, well, then that is a lens through which they can understand everything else. Okay, if God is the all-knowing, the all-powerful, the one that wants best for me, then if he's told me to fast for Ramadan, for example, as we're in Ramadan right now, right, for 30 days without food and without water during the day, I don't understand the wisdom in this, right? but I'm going to do it because it's coming from the one that knows best and the one that wants best for me. I may not understand it. I may not like it from my current, for example, scientific understanding of the world. I may not agree with it, but I know it's coming from the all-knowing being. Therefore, it's best for me. And I may later on appreciate the wisdom. And even if I don't, I can rest assured in the knowledge that this is from the one that wants best for me and the one that knows best. So you can see how having the right filter and lens shifts your perspective. And that's essentially what we want to achieve here. Most misconceptions, bro, I believe arise because of people's filters, the way they see reality and the way they assess things in reality, right? If you change those filters, you deal with the problem. If you don't change the filters, you will go around in circles trying to address people and get people to come around to your understanding, but in most cases they won't. They will hardly ever agree with you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's not to say, bro, that's not to say that there is a place, where that discussion has to be had and misconceptions have to be answered, etc. But what we're dealing with here, especially on this channel and with our training at IRA, is what we're doing is we're trying to show how the masses can get involved in Dawah and what the most fundamental aspect of Dawah is, which is to convey those fundamental core teachings. That's what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
Sure, there's a place for addressing misconceptions, etc. But the list of priorities is to let people first and foremost know who Allah is and what the purpose of life is.
Absolutely. I really love the comment of, and Jazakallah khair for that, Imran, by the way. I really love the way you explained that a lot of these misconceptions are simply us having the wrong filter and reading something. And you can't get rid of that misconception until you change the lens. You can't. So if somebody's like not even sure if Islam's the truth and they hear the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, which I'm paraphrasing, that, basically, let me just Google that while you keep talking.
Let me keep talking.
Yeah.
No, but I think this is, just to sort of brush up on the point a bit more, what we're saying is that the misconception is pegged upon that filter. So it's contingent upon that filter. As soon as you remove and change that filter, the misconception disappears in most cases. Right? So that's what we're essentially getting at. And if you don't deal with the filter and you keep dealing with the misconception, so the misconception, if you like, is the symptom, and the filter is the cause. Right? So you can see it like this: the cause and the effect, the cause and the symptom. If you keep trying to deal with the symptoms, you're not going to deal with the cause, right? So you have to deal with the cause.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example of a narration that would not make sense at all to somebody who has no faith or somebody who is not practicing Muslim, and how that is totally different if somebody is practicing. There's a narration of the Prophet ﷺ, this world is cursed, and what is in it is cursed, except the remembrance of Allah and what is conducive to that, or the one who has knowledge or who acquires knowledge. Yeah. Now, people like, they live in the YOLO lifestyle, they're going out partying, they're playing video games, they're doing all this stuff, and then they hear everything is cursed, everything is meaningless except the remembrance of God. And they're like they have a misconception.
That's what it is, bro. It's the filter.
It's the filter.
The filter from this perspective is, let's take an example that on this narration. The filter here is, what we've been sold is that, we're here to enjoy life and make the most of life, right? This is an amazing place to be and an amazing experience to be had. We have to just do whatever we can, enjoy ourselves, live a free life as long as we don't impose on someone else's freedom, and we're good. That's the idea we're sold, right? That's one of the filters we have. Now, based on that narration, they'll be like, what are you talking about? It's not a curse. For me, remembering God is a curse from their perspective, right? And that's why I don't want to believe, because it's cutting me off from all these worldly things that I enjoy and I love, right? So if you don't remove or deal with that filter, you're never going to be able to get them to appreciate what's being said.
Yeah, absolutely. So Imran, let's put the question to you from brother John Watson. So should we ignore people's misconceptions?
Nope. What we should do is we should get them to focus on and get them to appreciate and understand what's really important.
Yeah.
Right? First and foremost, right? So the way we do it, as we mentioned in one of the first videos on initiation, is, okay, say John comes to you and he's like, why do your women cover it's just not equal. It's just not. Where's the equality here? Your women have to cover from head to toe. Your men can walk around in just shorts that they pull up upon their navels with their chest hair hanging out, whatever the case is. Where's the equality there? Right? Where is the equality? What's going on here? Now, obviously, from a liberal perception of equality, this is a huge problem, right? There is no equality, right? This is night and day, apples and oranges, what we're talking about here, right? So this is a misconception. Should we just leave it? No, we deal with it, but unless we deal with that filter now, the filter of equality that they have, right, and we change that out for the correct filter, they will never appreciate how equality is understood from the Islamic perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't not answer the deal or not deal with the misconception. We do, but we deal with it later on once we've given them the foundational tools, once we've given them the right filter. Once John understands who God is, once John understands who we are, what the purpose of our life is, and what our relationship is with our Creator, once all of this foundational work has been done, then we can go back to the misconception and address it, because at that point, if it still remains, then we can go back and address it, and John will be in the right position, or would have the right tools now and the right lenses to be able to deal with and understand the answer to that misconception in a very clear way, and he wouldn't need to argue about it. And let me just quickly make the analogy, bro, the analogy we paint all the time, which is, imagine for a second that, there's a wall behind me and it's a white wall. And all of you are looking at it, and all of you are wearing clear glasses, right? A clear pair of glasses. Now, when you look at the wall through those clear lenses, what color do you see the wall? You see it as white, right? You see it for its true color. Now, imagine I walk in, or Sabur walks in, and he's wearing these sort of funky red tinted glasses, and he looks at the same wall. Now, what color does Sabur see it? Sabur sees it as red. That's his first-hand personal experience, right? Now, you can sit there and you can argue with Sabur all day long. No, bro, you're seeing it's white. You're just not seeing it in the right way. It's white because of this. Look at this. Look at that. You can argue with him all day long. But Sabur will not appreciate what you're saying fully until he sees what you see. And for him to see what you see, what you have to do is you have to remove his glasses, and you have to give him the clear pair of glasses. And once he puts the clear pair of glasses on himself, and he sees the white wall for himself, there's no more discussion anymore. There's no more problem anymore, right? So that's essentially what we're saying here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really love the analogy, because what it basically goes to show is, if the guy is staring at the wall and he's got red glasses on, he's going to say it's red. You're going to say, no, it's white. No, it's white. You can see it's white, or whatever. They won't. And it doesn't matter how much you explain to that person it's white, until and unless they change their perspective, they take off the glasses, they will not see the true color. So what's powerful about the GORAP and the summary of the GORAP that we're covering today is kind of like, imagine if I have, in the old days, we used to have the phones plugged into the modem and, the wire and stuff. If you have lots and lots of wires and a lot of mess, you don't know what's going on. Sometimes you just need somebody to take out a plug and stick it straight in the socket and say, okay, now we've got a line, yeah? Or like, you see these poor guys on, the electricity cables where it's got all this wiring, yeah? And you don't know what's connecting to what. Sometimes the best thing to do is to get rid of that and just take one wire and stick it here and stick it there. GORAP is just a switch. It's a way of just rerouting the conversation back to the real issue, right? Ignoring everything else. Think of it like a shopkeeper. Yeah. So you have a shopkeeper who walks into the store, and somebody walks into the store and somebody's asking a question, what's the ingredients in this product? Somebody else is saying, how's the weather? Someone else is saying, did you see the football match? The real issue there is the transaction between the shopkeeper and the person buying the product. That's the real thing. In our conversations, the real thing is the transaction of them changing their lenses. That's the real goal. It's not about showing them, oh yeah, this product has nice ingredients, and then the person walks out the shop. No, you need to get to the point. The point is Islam is true and you should follow it. Everything else doesn't matter. There's actually a really interesting comment here. So you basically have to sway the discussion to the proof of the Quran, God, in a way to have them use the correct filter, then answer these types of questions. What would you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's what we're saying. It's so, again, to emphasize it from a different perspective. I mean, when we go back to the time of revelation, now we know the Quran was revealed over a 23-year period to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, there's some of the wisdoms behind this. Obviously, we can appreciate is that the people, it was given in gradual doses to people over time, so they can appreciate everything, right? Slowly, chunk by chunk, bit by bit. The initial period in Mecca, the first decade or so and more, maybe I think the first 13 years, the focus of the verses, the ayat that were coming down to the Prophet ﷺ was what? What was the primary focus of those verses?
Tawheed, Risala,
Exactly.
Akhirah,
Yeah.
core
Fundamentals.
core beliefs.
Core fundamentals. And delivered in a very clear, concise, hard-hitting way.
Yeah.
Right? Right to the point.
Yeah.
Right to the point. But even today, yeah, I'll be honest. Look, if anyone's studying Arabic, one of your nightmare places to go, as far as purely from an Arabic study, vocabulary study perspective in the Quran, is in Juz Amma, to the last part of the Quran, which is the first parts to be revealed. Because the vocabulary there, bro, it has its own dimension. It's almost like a language within a language. It's clear, it's concise, the words are deep, they're full of meaning, it's to the point, bro. Like short surahs, they have volumes of on commentary on them, right? Is because the objective there was to get people to really understand the core fundamentals. Who is Allah? What is the hereafter? Who are you? What's your purpose? Who is the Prophet? Core fundamental theological points, right? The filters. Allah was delivering the right filters, the right spiritual, psychological filters to humanity in those revelations, so that people will be ready that come Medina, come the time of the revelation of Surah Baqarah and so on and so forth, where the laws and legislations are coming down now, that they were ready to accept them and implement them, right? Take the prohibition of alcohol, bro. It happened in gradual steps, right? When it was fully prohibited, was there any resistance from the companions? Generally speaking, no. They went, all the barrels of alcohol, they just opened them up and spilled them in the streets. It was all just spilling, free flowing, right? Yeah. Why? Because when that revelation came, they were ready to receive that revelation. If that had come prior to then, if it had come in the first 2 years or 3 years, would they have listened? No, right? They wouldn't, most likely wouldn't have agreed. So there's a process there's a natural process the human needs to go through, and that's shown to us by Allah in the way that He revealed the Quran to us. Fundamental message comes down first, the core concepts, the core beliefs, and then over time, the nuances, the laws, the do's, the don'ts come down over time, right? We're taking the same method. If you think about it right now, I'm just making the links right now as I'm talking to you. We're literally doing the same thing, which is give people the core, the fundamentals. Once that's embedded and that's there, and they understand it and they accept it, then the fine tuning, all of what the misconceptions normally are based upon anyway, which is those fine tuning aspects, which is certain niche areas of Islam, then they would easily be dealt with, right? But if you try to tackle them first without laying down the foundations, you're going to run into problems, right? You're never going to be able to do it. It's going to waste time in most cases, at least.
Yeah. John, very good answer, by the way, Imran. John Watson's asking a question. So, should you only talk about Tawheed and similar topics? Yes, is my short answer to that. But I'll give you an example, right? Firstly, it's very important to get the person in the right state. Most people are in a state of competition, as the Quran says. They're in a state of competition for worldly progress, for wealth, fame, image. I mean, just look at these three characteristics. Yeah? Something that's very interesting is the Quran really captures humanity, and captures our psychology. So Allah says in the Quran that you are steeped in competition until you visit the graves. Very interesting, steeped in competition. Now, Allah here, He doesn't specify what type of competition. What's interesting is throughout the Quran, Allah speaks about different types of people competing. And there's three recurring themes in the Quran about competition. Competition in terms of wealth, competition in terms of image, in terms of how you look, and competition in terms of popularity. Okay? So these sorts of things are mentioned about, people and beauty and these types of things. What's interesting is that these This book is 1400 years old after all. But this is exactly the characteristics of human beings today. Human beings, if you take a caveman and you look at the caveman and his life in his primitive village, and you look at a modern human being sitting in a skyscraper and eating lunch, you look at their lives, it's still the same thing. The caveman, he's probably going to try and come across as the most aggressive alpha male near the watering hole. And the fat cat executive, he's going to try and be, the most senior person in the office, right? Both are going to be after wealth. Both are going to be focused on image. Both are going to be focused on fame, right? And interestingly enough, these are the topics that we need to talk to people about to get them closer to Tawheed and make them understand, look, all of these things are meaningless. As Allah says in the Quran, it's all going to be dust. Everything's going to be dust at the end of the day. So, should we only talk about Tawheed and similar topics? Yes, because we want people to come closer to Allah, and to even create the opening to talk about Tawheed, we need to smash materialism. We need to smash this competition mindset. We need to get people from dunya-centric, from worldly-centric to akhirah-centric. And that will help open up a sort of new awareness and a new sensitivity to the truth. Because if people are not fundamentally, if you give someone reasons why Tawheed makes sense, but if that person doesn't really believe that the next life is important and it's all about this life, it's all going to fall on deaf ears. Hence why you find the prophets often challenging people about materialism. And this is very important in the Dawah. I thought Imran's going to carry on talking, but he's just staring at me.
No.
Okay, so let's go to a few more questions. So Imran, before we go to this question, I think this question is very good. Because this is related to our global work and what we're planning on doing. Give us a summary of today. What have we been trying to say? Because we've only got a few minutes left. What have we been trying to convey today?
Yeah, so the key thing today was summarize what we've covered in all of our Dawah training sessions so far, which is to stick to the basics, give people the right tools, give people the foundations, and give people the right filters, right? When you do this, most of their questions, many of their misconceptions will naturally disappear. And if they don't, at the very least, they'll have the right set of filters and lenses to be able to appreciate the answers to those questions properly and understand them, right? So essentially what we've been trying to clarify and go through is, when it comes to the da'wah, we have to keep in mind what is the da'wah about? What do we mean by giving da'wah? What are we trying to achieve here? The objective here is to call people back to the worship, to the recognition, and to the worship of the Creator. That's what we're trying to achieve. Yes. That people realize who they are, why they were created, who their Creator is, and what their relationship with the Creator is, right? This also includes the Quran and prophethood, because those are key elements to a complete and holistic understanding of this reality. So the basic message of Islam is to worship your Lord alone, worship Allah alone without any partners or any associates. Know your Creator, that He's the all-powerful being, the one who knows best, the one who wants best. He sent revelation to you. He sent you a messenger with that revelation to communicate that to you. These are the core concepts. Once people understand these and they internalize these, then everything else should fall into place anyway. And our objective is not to present Islam in a way where it's palatable to people, right? In a way which suits their tastes that have developed through their upbringing and the times that they live in, right? That's not what Dawah is all about. The Dawah is not about making Islam appeasing or appealing to people, just so it suits them and they're comfortable with it. That's no. We don't. Our paradigm is, this is the truth from Allah, right? This is not a sort of subjective garb that you wrap around yourselves, acting like that you are the standard of truth and you are the judge of what is true and what is false. This is the truth from God. It's not there to be molded and changed in a way which suits people at different times throughout history. Right? We need to keep this in our mind. So we're not there to appease people and make it comfortable for people. That being said, when someone truly understands Islam in a very sincere and honest way, removing their filters, they would appreciate its beauty and its simplicity and its clarity and its balance, right? They'll appreciate this, but that's not our job. Our job is, in a very simple way, to remind people of who the creator is and why they were created. And once people understand about these core concepts, the rest will unfold, and we can answer their questions and misconceptions later, no problem. Right? If you know the answers to the misconceptions, give them the answers. We're not saying don't give them the answers. Definitely give them the answers, but first give them what they really need, which is the core concepts, the core ideas, what makes people Muslim.
Yeah,
and just keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And look, always keep in mind the difference between a misconception such as Islam promotes terrorism, which has to be dealt with, and a false misconception, which is why does Islam force people to give 2.5% charity, zakat, right? No, that's an obligation. Nobody's can escape that, right? That's not voluntary. So, that's not misconception. That's true that in Islam, you don't have a choice whether you need to give the zakat. It's obligatory, right? If you're Muslim, you're going to pay it. Charity, additional charity is voluntary. You could do it or not do it. So we need to make that distinction. Okay. There's an interesting question here, brother. What is your ideas about having the future plans for the next couple of years in terms of the dawah? Okay. Look, the first thing is it's about mobilizing Muslims all across the world to articulate Islam. What we need to recognize is people are thirsty. They want to know, why do we exist? They want to know, why is there suffering? They want to know what happens after we die. These questions are way more important and way more emotive for people to take action than the Kalam cosmological argument, philosophy of science, biology, all these different things that we use against atheism or the Nicene Creed in Christianity and, the history of the early Christians. All of these academic topics, they're just kind of irrelevant to 99.9% of the people on earth, right? The average person. The average person is an emotive person. They just they want to know, why do they exist? What happens after we die? What's going to happen, in the future? How do we deal with suffering? How do we deal with pain? These are the real questions, and that's what we need to talk to people about. Often Muslims, too much, we get involved in trying to, have debates and dialogues and discussions, when what we really need to do is sit down with people and say, we're only here on earth for a few years and we have eternity to face, right? It's like an endless ocean that we're about to enter. And we need to think about this, right? And that really changes people's perspectives. And I think that's something which we definitely, as our era, we want people to wake up to, which is that we need to reconnect humanity back to our creator. Any last thoughts, Iran?
No, that's it, bro. The key is to keep it simple, to give people what they, like you said, people have these questions, and the questions aren't the genuine questions that most people are asking, are these simple questions about some very deep topics about life. Who am I? Why am I here? Where are we going after death? Why is there suffering, etc.? And we need to focus on answering these fundamental questions. And I really believe one of the greatest proofs of Islam, bro, is in its utility from the perspective that it provides answers to all of these questions in a very profound way, which satisfies the soul, which satisfies the human being, the human nature. That is one of the greatest proofs, bro. That experience that one attains when they find those answers and they satisfy the soul, bro. That is the greatest proof. All other proofs are superficial, bro. I really believe, or secondary, right? Like once you really see how Islam is answering every single fundamental question that we have in a very simple and clear way, which makes sense to my soul, that's it. What else you want? It's like you have a thirst, right? You imagine you've never drank water before, but you experience thirst. Your throat's drying, and many of us can relate to that right now because we're still fasting. But your throat's drying, and you don't know what water is, but you're experiencing thirst. As soon as you get water and you drink it and it quenches that thirst,
Yeah.
Done. You know what water is there for. You know the truth of water. You don't need someone to come, a scientist to come and prove it to you now. This is, these are molecules, H2O, and this is how it works. And you don't need none of this bakwas. It's pointless, bro. The water has quenched your thirst. It's kept you alive. It's done what it had to do, and it's satisfied you. Full stop. That's the greatest proof of what water is. You don't need anything else beyond that. And that's I think one of the most profound proofs of Islam, especially in the times that we live in, that we need to communicate with people, which is provide those fundamental answers, to the questions people have through Islam. And if they're honest, they will see its truth through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really beautiful way of summarizing the GORAP as well, because that's what the GORAP's essentially about. The GORAP's essentially about, look, God is all wise. So whatever you're going through in life, whatever questions you have, whatever issues you have, fundamentally, if Islam is the truth, it has the solutions to everything, and you should follow it. Jazakallah khair, Imran, for coming onto this live stream. We will try and go live again more regularly. I had a bit of a break because I traveled from Pakistan to the UK and then a few days settling in. But inshallah, I'm going to carry on for the rest of Ramadan in doing these live. Make sure you join us at 6 p.m. UK time as throughout the rest of Ramadan. We also have live appeals in which we are going to be speaking about Africa, Latin America, and various other works that we're doing all across the world. And make sure you tune in for that. And remember, it's the month of Ramadan. It's the month that we need to support the Dawah. So go on to ayera.org and make a donation as well, so we can continue this Dawah effort all across the world, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.